the Anil Kapoor case mentions AI for namesake. Arijit Singh case is specifically about the fact that you can't generate AI outputs out of Arijit Singh's content. It's not about Ryan Reynolds or Robert Downey Jr. A lot of VFX artists who work very hard for Marvel content, they actually were not compensated well during the COVID times. But I'm not gonna even say that Elon Musk is some god or he's just perfect guy. He's not that, right? He also makes decisions which are irrational. So I'll say that OpenAI is too big of a company which is not understanding how it should act. Not open enough. It's not transparent in its value systems. It's safe. Data scraping through Twitter was so easy. Every single tweet could be scanned by the FBI or anyone in the world without any consent of the Twitter user. And in India, the unfortunate part is that AI discourse is being led by investors, while it should have been led by people who are in science.
First thing first, thanks a lot for doing this. I think we planned this a week ahead, and finally, I wasn't sure that you would be available, right? But finally, we are doing this. Thanks a lot. You're on mute.
Yeah.
So you turned author this year, if I'm not wrong, right?
Honestly, I have been author since 2019 and before, but I would say a more known author, not that viral, but yeah.
So, but the copy that I was going through, so it's the Artificial Intelligence Ethics and International Law, right? So it was released in January this year, or it was pre-release as well?
Officially, it came on Amazon on December the 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a copy from the publisher. I was in Delhi. I just needed it. They gave me a day before. It was released officially on December the 1st. But of course, for certain versioning aspects, they say, it came in January and all that. That's just normal thing. Yeah.
Cool. So, and how long have you been working on this exactly? This entire project?
This book, well, the first edition, 2019 March, I had completed. Second edition,
Okay.
it took me 3 months or 4 months to complete. The second edition, which had 4 more chapters. So, yeah. So, the second edition, I started working last year itself and got completed in last year itself. So,
Cool,
yeah.
cool. So, any particular reason why you were motivated to write a book, that too on ethics side of the AI? Like, that's quite rare, right? I've been reading about it, and there aren't much people are too keen to come up with new products and focus less on the ethical side and setting boundaries and constraints. But people are more towards being very optimistic and just coming up with new, pushing the technology further. So, any particular motivation why you decided to write on this particular topic?
Well, honestly speaking, my motivation comes from the fact that I am a very tech-savvy person and I love the fusion of technology and law in my
Yeah.
own way. So mostly what happens is that across the world, you'll see people have a understanding of fusing technology, ethics, and law because of some Western understanding. I have a very
Right.
Indian and Asian understanding with some Greco-Roman understanding. I'm a fan of the classical understanding of Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, and my understanding of civil liberty and classical liberalism has been a very interesting thing, mixing with my own understanding of our scriptures and Vivekanand and many other luminaries in India. So, that kind of
Uh,
metaphysically inspired me to take this approach. I'm a bit
okay.
more, yeah, and I'm interestingly, I also specialize and I'm building myself. I don't have a degree in that, but I also specialize myself in Indo-Pacific studies because in my work, I also have to understand public policy because
Correct.
constitutional law and international law has been my forte always, and
Yeah.
technology has been my love. So in that regard, because I know geopolitics and policy, I understand that, okay, how technology matters because according to India's external affairs minister, and completely agree with Mr. Jaishankar, he says that every technology is political, and that is true because when it is limited to national boundaries, it is political. Yes, it has
Yeah.
a scientific conundrum at a global scale. There is CERN and everything, but even in uh, places like in America where you have research centers
Right.
in atomic physics and others,
Mhm.
Russian scientists are expelled. Now, that's a different issue that, you can't trust Russian scientists and all that, for
Right.
example. That's a different issue, but you did expel them, showing a political motive. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, it's, the technology is political. It is housed in the US, US has R&D dominance. The same can China do, right? Chinese can say that. So, of course, that fusion kept me in a very unique position. I
Right.
call myself more of a classicalist and futurist
Yeah.
combination of, like, it's like mixing Eli Raja with Ajay Atul with I mean, giving music references. People
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
who is
Yeah. Yeah.
the god Eli Raja. He is the god
Mhm.
with Ajay Atul and the very great composer known as Lon Balf, who has composed
Mhm.
for so many movies and shows. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the flop ones, but the recent one is Gran Turismo. Of course, a great movie in
Okay.
Hollywood. Yeah, of course, not Black
Mhm.
Adam. So, anyways, so that's
Yeah.
my fascination.
So now I get why your chapter starts with a Sanskrit shlok, right? And I got a chance to have a very eagle eye view of the entire book. And I think after when we release this episode, I think we are doing a five books giveaway as a contest. So we'll do that. But yeah, so I was just thinking when you say you released the book in 2019-20, and that is the period where the entire AI boom was taking place, right, with ChatGPT and OpenAI. And now we are in 2021, and recently we saw a case where Elon Musk and Sam Altman, they got into a legal battle, right? And this was the entire battle was between ethics and pushing the technology. So one side was completely towards pushing the technology, and the other side was completely towards setting the parameters, setting the boundaries. So what is your take on that entire scenario?
So, first of all, to be very fair, these lawsuits which happen between tech
Hmm.
giants and all them are what we call as lawfare, which is to say
Okay.
a warfare through litigation. Now, it's
Hmm.
not technically doing battles, but it means that you're doing strategic litigation in a very competitive sense to ensure that companies are constrained through some injunction order or something in a court of law. And that is very common to happen in the US, right? It happens
Yeah.
between Marvel and other players as well, right? Marvel
Right.
Studios had to agree about unionization. I mean, I don't
Hmm.
know if they have agreed yet, but there's something called Marvel Parliament, in
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
they have unionized their VFX workers and artists, because it's not about Ryan Reynolds or Robert Downey Jr. A lot of VFX artists who work very hard for Marvel content, they actually were not compensated well during the COVID times, and even
Hmm.
recently, whether it was any movie like Deadpool and Wolverine or any other movie. So what
Yeah.
happened was Marvel had to agree with their decision that unionization will be have to be appreciated. They have no choice. They're such a big franchise. So
Correct.
these America. So we have to understand America a little bit very quickly. So America is a very federalized country in terms of its spirit.
Yeah.
So when you file these lawsuits, you find that you do it in a very federal sense, that it's a competitive approach, it's a strategic
Yeah.
approach. Now,
Yeah.
into the contents of the case, I'll not specifically go into, because I'll just say that OpenAI has profit and non-profit factions. One
Right.
part of the board is a listed company LLC, one part
Hmm.
is non-profit. The non-profit board has its executive capacity, but the problem is, while Sam Altman has alleged or said that he doesn't own any shares, doesn't have any sharing rights,
Right.
he
Right.
is, of course, the head and CEO, which is CEO
Hmm.
only. The
Right.
thing with OpenAI is that the structure is very opaque and non-transparent. So when
Hmm.
Elon Musk was the investor, and I think he is still the investor, I don't know, the clarity is not visible, which is because he filed it. And again, he has the right to do so. I'm not going to say Elon
Yeah.
Musk is completely wrong, but I'm not going to even say that Elon Musk is some god or he's just perfect guy. He's not that, right?
Of
He
course.
also makes decisions which are irrational. So I'll say that the litigation itself is interesting.
Hmm.
I think it's still pending in my view, but it actually kind of shows that between Sam Altman and Elon Musk, it's just that OpenAI is too big of a company which is not understanding how it should act, and there are some
Yeah.
ethical issues with companies like them. So Elon Musk
Hmm.
was concerned, because the major concern that he had was that he acquired X,
Right.
aka Twitter.
Yeah.
And when you acquire such a company, the issue is after acquisition,
Hmm.
OpenAI, whatever GPT 3.5 and 4 has been, it
Yeah.
has been improving itself a lot in the past
Hmm.
because of what it has been scraping through Twitter. Because under Jack Dorsey and Parag Agarwal and
Mhm.
even Hema who was in India,
Yeah.
Twitter in
Mhm.
the Twitter, they were data scraping through Twitter was so easy. Every
All right.
single tweet could be scanned by the FBI or
Mhm.
anyone in the world without
Yeah.
any consent of the Twitter user.
Okay.
Now that's good for your search engine optimization and advertising tech. It
Right.
creates a profile for SEO on Google and Bing and everything.
Right.
But is it legally viable to to have the FBI doing something about it, and then
Right.
any random company doing data scraping and nobody even knows about it? I mean,
Hmm.
basic trade secret issues come in, right? So Elon Musk has his own concerns,
Yeah.
and again, another one of the few concerns, many concerns are there, but one of the few concerns he also raises is that OpenAI is not open enough. It's not transparent in its value systems. It says that it
Right.
wants to research, but basically, so in atomic physics and other fields, nuclear
Mhm.
physics, not atomic physics, it's nuclear physics, astronomy, all these fields,
Yeah.
you have certain independent research centers which are not acting like startups.
Mm.
OpenAI
Correct. Makes sense.
totally acting like a startup,
Mhm.
not like a not-for-profit venture, and
Yeah.
definitely quote unquote not open.
Right.
So I think that's a limited concern, but I would not rather comment on the case very deeply. I have, of course,
Mhm.
given my points as to why it is interesting to see. But
Yeah.
then again, it all will depend because the data scraping practices are a problem in the European Parliament. Somebody presented a
Mhm.
paper stating that copyright issues occur. Even my firm came up with a report on
Okay.
that just a
Mhm.
few days ago. I don't know. So I think, yeah, all of that has happened, but I'll just stop at this when it comes to this case particularly.
Right, right. So yeah, a lot of things like, of course, what Elon, I like the take of Elon on overall scenario, but of course, I don't agree to everything that he says, right? So that is there. Uh, you brought a very valid point that how, and I also noticed that in our history that how every technology has been pushed because they want to have a military, edge over other countries, right? When it comes to having edge over the enemies or the countries that you're not friendly with. Every technology has been used in a way where they want to be advanced enough to use that whenever it's required. And I think a lot of technological development only happens because there is a quotient of war that is always lying there, right? And even in I've seen like if I read the old scriptures, say Mahabharata and all the scriptures, they say that biggest development, of course, comes from war. And there's a Osho take also that the next war won't be in Earth itself; it will be multi-planetary war. And I see how technological development, uh, one of the motive of technological development is war. So, uh, have you seen any current development when it comes to military exercises where AI has been used extensively?
So the most mainstream use of AI in military application is already happening. In the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, drones were used. I think they were funded or built by the Israeli government.
Right.
In the Gaza situation, Israel has been using drones for sure. Drone
Yeah.
technology has been there.
Mhm.
Autopilot uses of automotive also not automotive automotive systems,
Yeah.
which are basically unmanned aerial systems. They
Mhm.
also have been subject to use for surveillance reasons. There have been some accusations also that the Chinese government is trying to do also, but we don't know about that necessarily.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's also there in the border situation when it comes to India.
Right.
near the near Bhutan border or something like that. I'm not sure about it. I'm just speculating it, but I think the
Mhm.
Chinese have also been trying to do so. It's not sure. I'm not sure about it. Rest, I'm
Right.
sure. Nagorno Karabakh, there has been use. Beyond Nagorno Karabakh, we also see the use in the Israel Palestine situation in Gaza, West
Mhm.
Bank. Uh, that's been happening. Beyond that, drones have also been used in other conflicts in Yemen also, if I'm right. So I think it's very mainstream. It's been happening even in Ukraine.
Right.
We have been seeing this from the Russian side, and I think both sides, because both sides have their own mercenaries. This is evidently true now. Nothing
Right.
specific to talk about that, but yeah. So yeah, I agree with
So,
you that there's some use, but specifically,
hmm.
what's your question? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was what I was building to is the nuclear power was discovered, they came up with treaty to limit the usage of nuclear weapons and everything. So is there anything that guides or at least limits people from using it to the potential that AI is capable of?
So when it comes to unmanned aerial weapons,
Hmm.
uh, and unmanned autonomous vehicles, which are used for military purposes,
Hmm.
there have been some negotiations at the UN level. There has
Yeah.
been some groups which have been working on under the UN Security Council and the General Assembly,
Hmm.
and that's been going on. India is also a part of it through Geneva. That's
Yeah.
not obvious, and the permanent mission in New York. But uh, uh, when it comes to military application, see, the point is about international law making. Now,
Yeah.
I need to tell you this because I think people don't know. So, drafting a treaty is not impossible.
Hmm.
The problem is whether countries will agree to it. Now, what happens is that certain practices are preemptive,
Yeah.
or certain practices have their own nature of what we call as state practices. Every country has it.
Yeah.
Since every country has it, what happens is that every country will have its own diplomatic considerations and political considerations. Even
Okay.
we will have. That's how we justified rightfully the
Hmm.
Pulwama thing, that we had conducted a preemptive strike.
Okay.
And under the exceptions of bringing India to the International Court of Justice for a
Hmm.
court case, if Pakistan wishes to try, it could not do, because the exceptions offered by the International Court of Justice, especially what are the reservations, what are the exact conditions that India will agree that ICJ has jurisdiction over any matter against the government of India,
Yeah.
that is so complicated, it will never happen. Because
Makes
you need
sense.
all the treaty allies, which is to say
Right.
all the parties of the Charter of the UN and parties to the Statute of
Hmm.
the ICJ. It will never happen. One
Right.
party falls out, you're done.
Correct.
So it will not happen. No country will be able to do, not the United States, nor Pakistan, nor anyone. So in that regard, if you see this at this level in treaties also, there
Hmm.
is some understanding there. I'm not specifically specialized in military aspect, but I can tell you from an international law aspect is that of course there's a thing that drones and those kind of applications which are there. Um,
Yeah.
there have been some attempt about it, but it's not easy to adopt a state practice, so the negotiations just keep going on. Same happens for nuclear capabilities. I think it all depends on specific classes of technologies,
Hmm.
but I think it's still a long way to go. It depends on the sophistication of drone technology. Since I'm not a drone specialist or not in
Hmm.
robotics, because AI and robotics
Yeah.
being in the same category are still different. Robotics is very hardware centric. It has a very different approach in manufacturing, military, and others.
Right.
AI is very digital, but from a legal point of view, I'm telling you that it will take time. There have been some developments, but it goes down to nothing because nobody's agreeing to it, and it can't happen unless some convergence of state practices happen. I don't think
Makes
that
sense.
happens anytime soon. Maybe because also that the technology is very nascent. There are other political reasons. Not interested to discuss that. Was too complicated to discuss. So
Hmm.
that's what you want.
Right, right. And why I bring this up, because I am into IT field, so I basically into complete product designing and research. So what recently happened was there was a boom in the startups that came from the AI space, and they have been building products, and they're coming up with products and updates like rigorously. They have been at it from a very long time, but I have never seen a startup team of founders discussing the boundaries that they want to set. They just want to come up with the product as fast as possible, make it available, no matter from where the data is being fetched. They are really not, into putting the boundaries, but just coming up with a product, having it live, making people try it, without much like just talking about the drone technology, right? Again, drones, they. Recently, I was going through article where they could recognize faces, right? And it completely again breach of privacy, and that's what I think the protest we saw in Japan, that people are still trying to uh, they don't have they haven't given the consent, but people are still just taking their face scans and everything. So when you see these startups and they're coming up with new technologies, new products, and it started with text, now it's into image, now it's into video as well. What do you think, is there a very is there a body that limits on how they could grow, where they can collect their data from, how they could uh, interact with the users, and how much data of the user that they can use for their personal product development?
So a larger, better answer to that is data sharing agreements and service agreements. Every startup has their own service agreements, terms of
Mhm.
conditions and conditions. Sometimes you have data arrangements also among companies through third-party players or ad tech or
Mhm.
any other thing. So
Right.
it all depends on that and boils down to that. Now, how transparent are those contractual understandings? Essentially, we don't know. Uh, it's not about the non-disclosure agreement. We just don't know. Some parts we need to know in public interest. For example, I actually had the opportunity to draft what we call as India's first privately proposed AI bill,
Okay.
and I drafted that bill only to get public feedback, not because we were asked by the government. Nobody asked us.
Yeah.
It was my view, and I was waiting for 2 years to see what's
Mhm.
happening in India. And I was like, you know what, now let's try. So I
Yeah.
came up with that. So, and the idea was, and what I'm trying to say here is, we need to understand
Mhm.
that regulation makes sense when it is practical. Now,
Right.
when it comes to data, there are certain practices.
Mhm.
But how much transparent are we when it comes to data collection, data quality, consent management? It's a very hard territory.
Yeah.
And again, the issue is a lot of MNCs are not able to even profit from the data that they're gathering. So they're
Correct.
gathering too much data also, and they're not able to make profits out of it.
Right.
So the claim was because this was a claim, and that's why they say that digital competition policy should not apply to them in the case of India, which was
Okay.
exactly the opposition to the digital competition bill.
Okay.
Because all of it is anti-competitive also to an extent, right?
Mhm.
Except maybe in e-commerce and certain fields, because in
Yeah.
e-commerce the profit margin is so bad in India. Like
Correct.
uh, you are on Amazon or Flipkart, the profit margin is so bad. So what is anti-competitive then? Yeah,
Mhm.
from a resource point of view, from a B2B resource point of view, it might be a bit anti-competitive, but again, the technical understanding is still not clear anywhere in India. The FTC sometimes also falters, becomes very reactive.
Yeah.
Uh, Similar happens in European Union. They become very reactive. Hence, these data practices are flouted. But among this,
Mhm.
I would say that GDPR is still the world's best data protection regulation, simply because the GDPR created such a strict standard that
Mhm.
all agencies had to comply to some extent. It's not that they're not complying at all; they are complying. But then
Right.
again, a lot of undoing of bad technology development
Yeah.
is also necessary. And I think that is the overhaul, right? That is gonna take a long time. That's what
Correct.
happened next as well. It's still not perfect. There are some bot which come up.
Mhm.
uh, it doesn't have a proper approach as to how users are being blacklisted or shadow banned.
Right.
I don't trust X for that, not because of Elon Musk particularly, but I think because of the way the team has not been attending the issues properly. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know. Nothing personal about it. It's just
Mhm.
about the quality of an app, right? So I hope that kind of gives you a context because uh, even when you talk about companies which say, you know what, we want to regulate and all, I mean, I
Mhm.
would show you a statement by Aravind Srinivas. So
Okay.
Aravind Srinivas from Perplexity AI. Now you can disagree with Perplexity, you can criticize them. I use it. I also criticize it wherever necessary. But
Yeah.
uh, this is my personal opinion, not my opinion as the chairperson of ISAIL or head of
Sure.
Indic Pacific. My personal opinion on this is that Arvind Srinivas made a lot of sense by saying that regulation right now is not needed because those who want to regulate, they don't know what do they mean. Now,
Correct.
it depends as to what kind of regulation are you talking about, simply
Mhm.
because specifics are necessary. And it's still nascent technology, but yes, their sovereignty questions are correct. That you know
Yeah.
what, how can you just do anything? Like I tell you something, not about AI, but digital tech and safe harbor.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Supreme Court of India does regular live proceedings on YouTube.
Mhm.
That's good, right? You come to know
Yeah.
about how Justice Chandrachud or any other judge is
Mhm.
actually going, and how the matter is. And good for transparency, good for the country, our
Yeah.
citizens must know, right? All good for national interest, public interest.
Correct.
Constitutionally, also, it's good for access to justice.
Mhm.
But also shows how certain advocates behave.
Right.
Like, one senior advocate did. I don't want to comment on that. But what happened was the Supreme Court told us on a
Hmm.
public note the YouTube channel was taken down. Now,
Okay.
reports suggest that it was some crypto hacker. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
it is the case, but I think some reports said that.
Right.
If that is the case, then YouTube is such a useless company. Can't even handle basic cybersecurity issues. So there is
Makes
a
sense.
safe harbor for that under the IT Act. You are an intermediary because you are an
Hmm.
intermediary in a specific segment, cybersecurity. You need to ensure the account is not taken down. You need to
Correct.
ensure that it doesn't happen. How did it happen? Because of regardless of 2FA,
Yeah.
two-factor authentication. Very
Yeah.
strange, right? So I think companies like YouTube and others, and even Indian companies, Zomato and etc., whosoever it is, they have to comply with some safe harbor. So the sovereign part of it, that the government is saying that how can you just do anything and get away with it? That is not justified. The problem is governments, how are they regulating it? So the intent
Hmm.
is not wrong. The question, the legal intent is not wrong, sovereignty wise, that why
Yeah.
not to regulate AI? But what do you mean by it? And that nuance is necessary. In every sector, it is different. Most people don't even know that recommendation algorithm is actually 100%
Hmm.
times different from Gen AI.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Recommendation doesn't generate novel outputs, even if they are useless outputs. And Gen
Correct.
AI does generate novel outputs in a particular pattern, that is large
Hmm.
language model.
Yeah.
And they're not world models necessarily, they're just normal models. I think the
Right.
difference is not known, which is why the discourse is so hasty. In every 6 weeks, like every single AI update comes, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, some nasty update comes. We also in the legal and policy side see some nasty document comes from the US Congress,
Yeah.
WHO, United Nations, European Union. I'm so tired of it. Like the
Hmm.
AI of the European Union.
Yeah.
So many legislative updates with no clarity.
Correct.
Either communication is bad or they are not clearing it up in the parliament. They have passed it, they have enacted it, still not
Yeah.
enforced. So they're not clearing it maybe, or the influencers are misleading people. But I think
Hmm.
communication issues are there. So I hope that summarized. But I'm sorry for a bit too
Correct.
long.
Correct. So I think a lot of problem comes when you are exploring a uncharted territory, and before controlling it, you have to be you should be able to understand what you're trying to control. And I think that complete part is completely missing when it comes to it. So this brings me to a point where we have seen that corporate laws are so easy, like are faster when it comes to drafting of corporate law, but technology law kind of takes a wider scope where you have to consider a lot of factors, and that is complete evolving, like every day it's evolving, right? So can you help like us understand how different they are, corporate and technology law, and how difficult it is to come up with one?
Thank you for asking me this,
Yeah.
because this question might enlighten a lot of people to understand that who is a technology lawyer and who is a corporate lawyer. And again,
Corporate law, yeah. Even before this, before reading your book, I thought they are the same person though.
yeah, I know it happens, boss. No worries. I sympathize with you. See, this happens even in environment and energy laws. People think environment is just about MC Mehta cases, which were utterly useless. I say it openly. MC Mehta cases were utterly useless. They were a scam. They are a blot to Indian environmental law jurisprudence and scholarship. Now, that
Mhm.
being said, today's energy law practitioners in New
Yeah.
Delhi, Bangalore, anywhere, they are among the best. Okay? Now, they are not essentially corporate lawyers. They are
Okay.
energy lawyers, construction law people, people
Mhm.
who know contracts, but also about energy practices, carbon practices, and all that stuff.
Right.
They don't need to be some roadside activist to do
Mhm.
some nonsense and not even know how to protect.
Right.
They actually know much better about sewage practices, desalination practices, how to
Mhm.
help corporations who are incompetent across the country. Right now, I don't need to say
Right.
Delhi, back everywhere it's the same. So
Yeah.
they know how to do it, and they are more competent lawyers than the so-called activists who file PILs and go to the Supreme Court and waste their honorable time. So
Mhm.
now let me get to corporate lawyers. Now, disclaimer: nothing against corporate lawyers.
Yeah.
They have their own purpose. So
Okay.
corporate law practices about merger and acquisitions, practices of the board, corporate
Yeah.
social responsibility, corporate espionage, those kind of things. That is about the functionings of a company under corporate law legislations, whether for a
Right.
private limited or a listed company or an LLP or one person company or
Right.
proprietor. Okay.
Yeah.
Some part of corporate law is also associated with taxation work, which is GST and income tax,
Correct.
which is different than customs. Okay, all that stuff.
Comes in. Yeah.
Tech- yeah. Now, technology law is also a part of commercial law.
Hmm. Okay.
It starts with contracts. But it is always about the subjective nature of a technology. You can't deny it. Simple. It is always
Right.
about the nature of technology. Second, it is also about the way the technology is used, who's the stakeholder. And it's a wild west situation. It depends. You don't sometimes need a law, sometimes you need basic guidelines, or sometimes you need
Right.
market practices which make sense, right? And
Correct.
honestly speaking, it is complicated like taxation law.
Yeah. Now I get
Because
your point.
because
Mm.
within technology, you have various streams.
Right.
You one. If you are an entertainment law helping a VFX company to cooperate with a Telugu or Hindi or Malayali cinema film for a science
Yeah.
fiction movie,
Yeah.
you are actually helping in the contracts with related to the use of certain material, compensation for the people making the VFX, royalty, copyright issues, trade secret,
Right.
non-disclosure, right? Now there are certain basic contractual practices which are similar, so corporate lawyers think they know. Of course, there are very few corporate lawyers who are also good in technology law in India. That is an evident truth. I don't want to comment who or from which city, of which law firm. That's not my business. But I think very few corporate lawyers are good in tech law
Okay.
because that even applies to litigation lawyers. Many litigation lawyers also don't know data
Right.
protection law, cybersecurity law, or technology law. Now, within technology law, there are segments.
Right. Right.
The most traditional one has been telecom law, which is
Okay.
telecommunication, cable networks,
Right.
broadcasting. Okay, all that stuff. Then it got to that's still there with the Ministry of Communications. Now we have also something called broadcasting, OTT, mass media, all that stuff, media and entertainment law.
Yeah.
That involves your VFX stuff I told you, rights
Yeah.
of artists, actors, directors, what and all that stuff. Part of technology is involved to the limit. Like for example, why all these cases are happening with respect to Arijit Singh, Anil Kapoor, Jackie Shroff. The reason they are happening is because, of course, there is some element else. I don't want to comment about that. But one thing
Okay.
which I see is that, of course, the Arijit Singh case is the most relevant to me because the direct reference to AI was there. Because
Okay.
in the Anil Kapoor case, which was made viral because of the Time magazine mention of Mr. Kapoor, and again,
Right.
Mr. Anil Kapoor is a great actor, one of the few left good actors in Hindi cinema.
Good
Most
actor.
of them
Yeah.
are, except maybe a few.
Yeah.
Uh, the Anil Kapoor case mentions AI for namesake. Arijit Singh case is specifically about the fact that you can't generate AI outputs out of Arijit Singh's content.
Okay.
It's not about whether it is owned by T Series or Z Media, Z Music or whatever. It is a Singh's voice. It is his persona, and therefore he owns it. He has some human autonomy associated with it, therefore personality rights. But I don't know why personality rights directly said in India. I think it's more around human autonomy and a civil human privacy. Maybe the problem in India is maybe our people don't understand that privacy is also a civil right, not only a
Right.
fundamental
Yeah.
right.
Right. Right.
Fundamental right is enforced against the government, police, district magistrate,
Right.
government, blah blah blah. But civil right means it's a commercial right too. You have a commercial right to your autonomy, privacy. Nobody just can copy my face like that, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And you can't just sue the government. You have to sue the company.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a civil commercial right of privacy too. Of
Right.
course, there's a element of public right, human dignity, human rights, but beyond human rights, it's a commercial right. I don't know why people don't understand this. Anyways, so that being said, that's a difference. Okay, now that is media and entertainment. Now the third stage is data protection,
Yeah.
privacy, quality, consent management. How do you take consent? Now you just can't write a privacy policy and just post it on your website and a
Just like
hyperlink
that.
and get
Right.
it. Use it. You have to have some consent management. Again, it's a very gray zone. Nobody knows what's happening. Some companies are pitching
Yeah.
solutions. It's a hard territory. Will people be able to afford it? So
Right.
that is the thing which is there. All of that depends. So I think that is data protection. Beyond that, of course, AI comes, specifics on blockchain. Gaming law is also there about games, how they're regulated, like how many times how much you can play, what are the practices which are addictive in nature, or about transactions
Yeah.
in gaming industry, how that happens. I think that needs to be taken care of, and that is something which is not particularly not particularly known by people, which is why corporate lawyers assume that technology law is just nothing. The fact is,
Nothing.
it's
Right.
huge and it gets even complicated. I can tell you a simple example.
Yeah.
Simple example. Suppose there's a gaming company.
Mm-hmm.
which is enabling transactions in its app with
Okay.
respect to football match,
Okay.
and it is promoting people to invest in certain people based
Hmm.
on AI generated outputs through algorithmic trading.
Okay.
Now,
Sounds like
AI
app
is
that I've heard. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't wish to reference that here. We don't.
Yeah.
And then the issue is algorithmic trading, gaming practices,
Hmm.
consumer rights.
Hmm.
That's the deadly combination in technology law. And I think
Right.
that is something which needs to be anticipated and understood. And I think that's why people don't know the difference between technology law and corporate law.
But then
Right.
these companies get to exploit these three parameters openly without any difference.
The parameters which I talked about.
Yeah.
So they have their subjective things. It depends what comes and goes, right? Everything
Hmm.
doesn't need to be applied at the same time. My point is
Right.
these things exist
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they have a legal value.
Right.
And since they have a legal value, that is undeniable. And in that regard, I think it is not fair for people who are merely litigants in service law or election
Hmm.
petitions, or I don't know, corporate lawyers who know mergers and acquisitions, and nothing against them. Also, that is also hard work. Okay, equity and all that, getting data settled, and getting the right transactions and getting it
Right.
through the competition commission. Also, all of these are very hard job, right, in commercial
Hmm.
matters. Some of the corporate lawyers are actually, to be very fair on their credit, good in financial law too. So
Right.
they help in the fintech side. But then even in the fintech side, if you see, the problem is, and fintech, by the way, I forgot to tell you, the sectoral wise, fintech, health tech, agri-tech, all
Yeah.
these are sectors also within technology law. So
Right.
it's about a specific class of technology, purpose of technology, and therefore it can't be limited with an understanding of merely saying, okay, I know because I'm a corporate lawyer.
Yeah.
I think the problem and the reason I think many corporate lawyers maybe in India don't understand this is because of a personal understanding that everything goes. But
Right.
the fact,
Hmm.
I will say it very openly, that our nation's litigation advocates, those who
Hmm.
file cases, they
Yeah.
have to do more hard work and research than the corporate lawyers.
Right. Right.
Because they
And
work hard. They have to read bare acts, they have to read everything. Corporate lawyers don't care about it.
right.
Not most, but a lot of them. They don't have that ethical understanding. And when it becomes,
Hmm.
or at least the litigation people in service law, banking, any field, insurance, or any
Yeah.
field, they have to work hard on this. With respect to arbitrators, they even also have to work a lot hard. Mediation
Okay.
professionals, ADR professionals. So the dispute resolution side is actually not easy. They have to work hard. They have to read. Corporate lawyers are like, just sign a contract, get it done, blah blah blah. No, it's not so easy. And then something goes to court, they're like, oh, we did not figure this out. So I thought, and that's why I told you that, that's why I say it very openly, that
Hmm.
technology law will become complicated as taxation law. You can't get away with it.
Right.
It's
And
you. Yeah, so sorry to interject you, but yeah, that's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great point. So I think I could boil down this to complete lack of due diligence, like because something has been there and they want to just go with it without understanding how the scenario is changing like every minute, if I have to say it. Right. So you mentioned a very valid point how the VFX industry has affected, right? And I wanted to your point of view when it comes to like recently Disney and other all big franchises are suffering when it comes to the overall revenue that they're generating and everything. But also the VFX artists are now facing that crisis, right, where they're losing their jobs continuously because of the new AI development. So, uh, have you noticed any, any scenario where you could clearly see evidence where the workforce could be replaced with the technological development, that is the AI itself, and you have seen any progress there where it has. I'm just trying to frame it right so that it doesn't complicate it. So where it can entirely replace a creative artist, if I have to say.
No,
Not right now, right? But
not at all.
but then right, but then there are so many companies who come out. I'm talking about service company who comes out and say they're AI design company, and I don't know what that term means. I don't know what do they mean when they say they are a AI design company. Do they do their copywriting with the help of AI? Do they generate their assets with the help of AI? Do they come up with scripts and concepts with the help of AI, or they use AI tools to come up with the final products or everything? And I've seen this recently where every service company in India is now a AI service company. I don't know how how that works. I don't know if you have noticed it at all recently. LinkedIn is filled with it.
And I keep addressing this issue. So
Yeah.
AI company, I'm not surprised by that. I think being an AI company is like a very normal term, but again, it's a very hyped up term. When you say AI company, for
Yeah.
example, you have a grocery store, small grocery store
Mhm.
selling some stuff. If you are using AI to automate queries
Yeah.
to get stuff from for people, and I don't know, to using robots, which is
Right.
possible as a
Mhm.
AI enabled store.
Yeah.
Now it's a very classy term, right? Like a very sassy term. You can just say it and go get away with it.
Correct.
Or in a hospital, you have chauffeurs, aka waiters. I know people don't like that term, so sorry for that.
Yeah.
You have robotic chauffeurs
Correct.
who actually, bring you stuff for during surgery time, and you know that it works. Or in, hotel work, hospitality industry, we see this thing that, people use these chauffeurs. Recently, I came up across a startup or a company which is trying to pitch it up to hotels in Delhi and many other places. I don't
Okay.
know which one, but they are doing it in India.
Mhm.
So again, not all startups in the design side are hyped up, but sadly, most of them are.
Right. Right. And I think
And
it's selling right
yeah,
now. Just adding a domain.ai or just having anything saying AI in their main landing page or the hero section, it just sells their company a lot, much more comparatively.
I don't think so. I think it's
No?
just hyping up because maybe our investors are not aware about AI at all. I think most of the venture capitalists, nothing against
Mhm.
anyone. I think most of the investors, and in India, the unfortunate part is that AI discourse is being led by investors, while it should have been led by people who are in science and
Correct.
computer science, not those in, and that's why they also lead the regulation discourse. They say that this should happen, that should happen without even
Right.
understanding. It's not about
Mhm.
economics, it's also about common sense. If you're not having a use case which is viable in future, how will you do it? I'll give you a simple example. NVIDIA is a successful company, no
Mhm.
doubt. It's semiconductors, but it is highly overvalued.
Okay. You think so? Not
Now,
aren't their technology backing up their valuation?
no, so
The
the
technology that
technology is good. The technology is good. It's
yeah.
fantastic, evolution wise and all that technical features. I mean,
Mhm.
they are the best company in the world, no doubt. But
Yeah.
the issue is the trickle down effect, the technical effect which leads to economic value. That's not coming up very soon. That's not because of
Yeah.
NVIDIA, although they came up with their own in house aspects as well.
Mhm.
Again, were challenged in an American court.
Right.
The problem is that cloud companies
Mhm.
are not getting enough profits. They
Right.
create a vendor lock-in effect for anyone in their own sector, again, up to them.
Yeah.
And then again, startups at the third level are not earning enough. The cash flow is not reasonable.
Right. Right.
So you
See
get
your
my
point.
point. It's overvaluation. The trickle down effect is bad. Therefore, Nvidia is not also getting enough. It's a constricted market. So technical viability guides how the market functions.
Right. Right.
So
Now I
as we
can connect the dots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and when we get on this thing
Mhm.
around AI companies, AI
Yeah.
design, again, for example, you say you want to replace. Okay, I understand the dilemma. Okay, some part
Yeah.
maybe can be replaced. Now, in marketing, content writing, there have been some possibilities, but again, it depends. You still need some human intervention. You can't get away with it, but yeah, it makes your
Mhm.
work a bit faster. So I
Right.
say that generative AI has been good in enabling productivity tools.
Mhm.
Now, a renowned tech ethics expert and professor of psychology, if I'm right, Dr.
Mhm.
Gary Marcus, he says it very nicely that Gen AI is nothing but rough draft AI.
Okay. And
I've
why
said
would
that
why does he say it's a rough draft?
because it's not perfect. It's you just get the output, you have to fix it. But at least it gets
Okay.
your work a bit easier, isn't it?
Makes sense. Yeah. Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, the nature of a technology is, and this is my view, is to ensure that your life becomes a bit easier.
Yeah.
If it happens, then bingo. If that
Mhm.
doesn't happen, then of course it's a problem. And I think even in the Hollywood industry, if you say that you want to replace, again, first, authorship rights. That's why
Yeah.
the strikes happened. Even if you solve the authorship and contractual issues,
Yeah.
are they even worth it for an IMAX screen or for any HD screen? Are they good for digital release? Are they
Okay.
even credible enough? Like even in a successful $1 billion movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, there was a
Mhm.
scene where the VFX was faltering out. In a particular scene, I don't want to comment if people have not watched that amazing movie.
Yeah.
Could happen in any movie, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
VFX falters, those issues happen. There is human intervention. Then again, a lot of computational capacity is also there.
Mhm.
So how does the economic match? And again, there is no viability which is known that well, right? It takes time.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening is that some companies are genuinely saying we are trying best in
Mhm.
a very simple niche, and they're giving it to B2 on a B2B purposes to certain companies. And you want to just take it. Good.
Right.
But some companies, for the sake of getting investors or whatever, and more leads of customers,
Mhm.
are just hyping it up. That
Okay.
it just works, all that. And there is one more last element to this, that when it comes to AI, there are certain things which are generated in an audio visual sense which are a very blatant copyright violation of
Okay.
original content. Somebody made a seed, I think Reed Southern. Reed
Okay.
Southern. We actually posted his thread on indian.substack.com. He
Okay.
actually showed that from movies like Top Gun Maverick, Avengers Endgame, Doctor Strange, Thor,
Mhm.
blah, 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 we actually see how exactly their content is copied and the generative AI is producing nearly exact replicas of
Yes.
them. Now,
Right. Right.
when you're doing that, you're violating copyright laws and you're actually blatantly not generating anything new.
No. Right.
All
Hmm.
that compute, all that money, where did it go? It shows
Right.
that generative AI technology is not viable enough in certain use cases.
Yep. Makes sense. Hmm.
Certain, yeah. That being said, of course, in agriculture, in pharma, in different sectors, when there is a narrow AI use case, you can have this much compute and invest. But for larger use cases or for consumers, it's a loss investment, zero sum investment.
Right.
That's why
Make,
people are delusional. That's why they claim in marketing you can use AI. Again, what does it mean? People
correct.
don't know.
No.
So
Yeah.
I just want to say that the same thing. I'm not going to comment on a specific company. Not interested in that. And I think that is why we advocate at the Indian Society of Artificial Intelligence and Law that AI standardization is fundamentally necessary for India. Not for regulation, but just to begin at least that there's something happening in the
Something
ecosystem which is
happening.
genuine. And I
And
think
I
that's
think Indian tech, the Indian tech scene has a lot of influence over what the product coming up and how they are engineered. I think a lot of my engineer friends are working on different startups and so on. So you also mentioned a point where the film stars and everyone is kind of having a copyright over their personality AI generation, right? But at the same time, there are uh, so many other companies like say Digiyatri or some other companies that have been scanning people's faces, though they are not celebrities, but their face also has a uniqueness, right? They also have all the right of privacy and everything, and we don't know how the data is being stored, nor we are communicated how the data is stored, because when I have tried multiple platforms where they generate a ditto video of me with a different script. So they'll just scan my face, I'll put on a new script and they will generate a new video of me. Or when I onboarded on the Digiyatri platform, I was never shown a message how my data is being used, how my face scan is being stored, and how if it's being deleted or not later. So should general public be concerned when it comes to going into different AI platforms where they scan your face or your voice, or even for check-ins and checkouts when they are scanning your faces?
yes, I think Digiyatra should be more transparent. Well, in the
Mhm.
subsequent versions, Digiyatra has been giving disclaimers that we
Right.
are processing this part of your data and that data is allegedly stored on the customer's phone. because
Yeah.
they process the Aadhaar also, maybe through DigiLocker or India Stack. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
is an API functionality. I'm not aware of it. But DigiYatra Foundation is a separate thing, and they are not properly even covered under the Right to Information Act. So you can't get an RTI
Okay.
response from the government as to where this data is going. And that's why I believe that for any public private partnership, I don't care if a government is doing it or not. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even care if it is a government of India affiliated statutory body of or not. If it
Right.
is involved in government service, basically it is government service. You are
Mm-hmm.
creating boarding pass using your biometric information so that you get into any terminal of an airport. And to
Okay.
do that, it's a government service. It's a government service you are availing. It is through government it is happening. Therefore, it should be under RTI. It is a public-private partnership. I don't care.
Right.
It should be there. If we can't even expect this much, I don't think it's good. So I
Okay.
think there's a lack of transparency on that because
Mm-hmm.
it should be under RTI. It is not under RTI simply because some private sector companies involved or something they have done, which is how they're deflecting it. I don't know how they're deflecting it. It's basically how the government thinks, but I'm not blaming any minister or anyone particularly. I'm saying it's a government problem. It happened with Digiyatra. It's quite sad. That being
Mm-hmm.
said, public-private partnerships anyhow have to be subject to RTI, and
Mm-hmm.
they say yes, we will respond, we will comply, and we will have to do it. I think there is no question about it, and I agree with you on points. See, yeah, facial recognition generally. There have been some other cases also in airports where people have been asked to, their photos are being clicked, who
Yeah.
are going through Yatra scanners, and they don't even know why that's happening.
Correct.
And the CISF officers allegedly are not even looking at the situation. I don't know if they're aware or not, but they
Yeah.
have been media reports. I'm not claiming this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But rest of the part is true. But that being said, even giving a disclaimer alone is not enough because I'll tell you very honestly, after UPI and the whole India stack thing, I actually could see the possibility that now people are able to understand data privacy after a long time. Maybe because of scam, maybe because of UPI, maybe because of something else. The one thing which we need to know is
Yeah.
that of Digi and others, okay, fine, getting consent is fine. But again, I think any public-private partnership activity has to be
Yeah.
subject to RTI when it comes to digital technologies and AI.
Right.
Right. With respect to AI, I think it should be the case. It can't be denied, can't be bypassed. Uh, Again, how much
Mm-hmm.
it should be, of course, that can be quantified, but it should be there to an extent. I think that is basically needed because in future we will also understand as public about augmentation and how AI actually affects us in many ways. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
my larger take per se on that regard. Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
there was so I also want to bring the metaverse thing here. So basically, metaverse was entirely about creating a digital presence of an individual on a different landscape, right? And in your book, you have clearly mentioned how Zuckerberg mentions about metaverse, and and you say that metaverse is kind of part of the whole internet, and internet itself part of the cyberspace. So I just want to understand, what do you mean when you say cyberspace?
Well, the term which Zuck used
Hmm.
is embodied internet. So
Okay.
embodied internet means that you have a digital real estate
Right.
which is within the cyberspace through internet. You can
Okay.
do things through the internet, and that itself creates that situation. Now, this has been tried because of the COVID situation. People were online. It was an attempt, but
Yeah.
while the concept of a nomad economy is true that you can work from Frankfurt and you can contact to people from New Delhi or
Hmm.
Hyderabad, and then you can coordinate with people in Australia or
Yeah.
Singapore city. It doesn't necessarily imply that it's a metaverse success simply
Yeah.
because uh, it's still not something which is blending in human life. It is not viable enough. Okay,
Okay.
Apple Vision Pro and all these tools which come up, they're not bad. I mean, they're advanced, but then there are
Hmm.
privacy issues around facial recognition. Thank you for
Right.
talking about facial recognition. Let me tell you an interesting case study. So I
Sure.
apparently, when you glance using Apple
Hmm.
Vision Pro, the way your facial and eyeballs, they both of them work, you can actually
Yeah.
type as well. Now,
Okay.
hackers, you can type. So, for
Hmm.
example, using your facial expressions, your biometric, that is your eyes, you can actually use your keyboard as well. You don't need to use your hands because you
Right.
apparently don't use your hands, right?
Correct.
And if you can do that, the problem which we see is that hackers are trying to figure out, and they tried to
Yeah.
figure out what are your passwords, and they were
Correct.
able to do through your eyeballs. Now
Hmm.
that's the
Yeah.
major issue, and Apple had to fix that issue. They were actually told about it, right? And they were concerned that this was even
Yeah.
happening. So I think again, not a bad idea. Metaverse, VR, XR, fantastic, could be used in education so well. I think
Right.
it could be a great thing in education for
Yeah.
visualizing in my ideas into children, and even in higher education.
Hmm.
In the field of fashion design, graphics design, metaverse is fantastic. For example, I know an
Yeah.
artist who used to be specialized in Italian or European sculpture or art making.
Okay.
Now she actually created a 3D version of Mona Lisa or something, and she created it
Okay.
using Metaverse. She created using those Apple Vision Pro type, not exactly that,
Yeah.
equipment. Now that is a success. So in the field of creative arts, it's already happening. It's a good
Right.
sell
Right.
in the
And
digital space. Okay, but education, yes. Uh,
yeah.
Beyond that, well, maybe yeah, for surveillance, for using drone technology to check out things for patrolling, yes, you can use metaverse. In fact, these Apple Vision glasses and all those can be used. So I
Correct.
see tangible use cases in these sectors. Okay, beyond that, maybe e-courts if you want to have metaverse for
Okay.
that. Even in India, something
Mm.
very funny has been tried for Kashi Vishwanath temple or some other temple in India. They're using metaverse
Yeah.
binoculars for doing a darshan of the temple virtually.
Oh, amazing. That's
Amazing,
also a
but
lot of knowledge.
amazing but funny. Madhab, you are
Yeah.
coming to the temple and then you're doing virtual darshan in the same
Virtual
temple
version.
outskirts. What does it mean? You can do it out in your home,
Yeah.
right? Just have an app and
Correct.
show them the darshan. What's the
Mhm.
difference? Why are you coming there then? So
Right.
it's
Right.
cool. It's cool. It sounds very cool for an Instagram reel, but it it is commercially nothing, right?
Correct.
Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, metaverse can be used in a smart way. These glasses, VR glasses, can be used for surveilling your crops because a
Right.
farmer can't go everywhere. You just need
Correct.
drones.
Yeah.
You can have a better aerial view, and then using
Hmm.
360 view, you can actually look through. See, I just created a use case. I don't know, maybe
Right.
somebody might be using it. I just created a use case. But what I'm trying to say is that, of course, there's a
Right.
possibility. But in a few sectors, it's happening. So again, the legal implications
Hmm.
are not easy to decipher right now. It still would take time.
Right. Right. And since you mentioned that since we are talking about digital avatars, I don't know if you recently saw this technology where it's basically a brain implant, and this brain implant works in a manner where it connects to your neurons, and a digital avatar of yours can talk in your behalf for basically people who are paralyzed, or they have a speech problem. So there's a proper implant that goes in your brain, and that implant actually communicates whatever you want to say through your digital avatar. So that is a very positive outcome of overall brain implant that we're talking about. And apart from that, we also I don't know if you've seen experiments from Neuralink yet. I don't know if right to call that AI completely, but now people are able to control their cursors and where they want to move their cursor and everything. And before it was just yes, no, but now they are able to also control movement of the cursor. So yeah, development is there in that space as well, and some positive, some negative, of course, but good to see those kind of development. Yeah, and so, I also wanted to know, are we already using AI in the legal space, or it's like something that legality still doesn't understand or doesn't want to include?
So AI in legal tech in India is It is something where a lot of entrepreneurs and people in the social enterprises sector are working hard, of course.
Okay.
Of course, from a private sector point of view, Sarvam AI, OpenAI are there, while
Mhm.
from a non-profit perspective, open source perspective, we have People Plus AI. There is a
Yeah.
Daksh Center by IIT Delhi. Then
Yeah.
there are ontology associations. And yeah, there have been some attempts by the Kerala High Court also recently, because I was in a visit to Kerala,
Okay.
and the Kerala High Court
Mhm.
under Mr. Justice Mohammad Mushtaq, they actually are working very hard on ensuring that the database, which has a master of roster to decide cases and show, not decide
Mhm.
cases, but actually allocate cases to courts and all that, and even show the
Okay.
pendency and everything. They actually are trying to do it pretty well. So yes, but that being said, the adoption across the country is very, very less.
Very less. Yeah.
Either it is happening in a very piecemeal manner where smart
Mhm.
lawyers are using ChatGPT or Perplexity. And
Yeah.
again, how can they afford it? Again, 1600 per month. Lawyers don't
Yeah.
even get enough money. But yeah, some lawyers are doing it. So congratulations to them. I'm happy for them. But
Yeah.
most lawyers, no. Most courts, no. But the Delhi High Court and the Kerala High Court are actually working very hard on this. So congratulations to them. Adalat AI is an interesting social enterprise. They actually have an interesting tie-up with the Delhi High Court for stenography, but they're also trying it for district courts across the country. So what they're doing is that, you know what, you have stenography work. So basically, you write, okay, and you have a very bad handwriting in these codes, right? How
Yeah.
people write and all
Mhm.
that, so inconvenient to understand what's happening. So they're using AI to do transcription, to make
Okay.
stenography better during the hearing.
Oh, all right.
Now
Hmm.
that doesn't mean it's accurate, but text to speech has already been there.
Been there. Yeah.
Now they are trying it in a more committed way, which is
Mhm.
appreciated, no doubt. So I think there has been a lot of developments.
Mhm.
Startups come and go, but that being said, again, it all depends as to
Mhm.
how are they succeeding. Is it profitable? No. In a B2C level, it's not working. SurveyMai has just came up with their use case, so therefore they even can't say they are successful. Yes, it is
Right.
great, it is interesting. uh, does it have data leakage issues? I don't know, but I think they're
Right.
working very hard on this, and their team is well talented to think about it. So nothing against anyone. I think these startups are
Right.
working hard. The thing which I a little bit worry about is that it's still not viable, so it will take time. But another issue is I don't even blame people in legal tech directly here, because I don't wish to blame them. No intent to do that. The
Mhm.
problem is largely with the our government institutions, because
Okay.
our government institutions have the responsibility,
Mhm.
including the judiciary,
Right.
to to actually disclose their data
Correct.
and
Hmm.
digitize as fast as possible.
Right.
Or else you
Right.
will never have legal tech companies. Uh,
Correct.
that's the point. That's the whole problem. Whether it is a for-profit company or something. And again, do you really think that a lawyer in a chamber or lawyers in a law firm will give away their confidential documents they generated through their clients through some AI system?
Correct. Yeah.
No. So all use cases are around them.
Mhm.
Now people are trying, they have some good ideas, everything is out in the open. But again, yeah, it depends how much viable it is.
Yeah.
So it
But
all
I am also like thinking that since AI is kind of based upon previous patterns, right? Whatever patterns that they are fed. So I was just reading through this one test where there were two convicts. One was white, one was black, and the AI was supposed to make a decision who is uh, higher chances of committing a particular crime, right? And it showed that the one who came from the black race, he is more, exposed to committing those kind of crime. But if you see the record of those two people, the woman actually had higher, severe cases against her of murder and everything. But the black guy was having previous cases of robbery. So when I bring it to Indian context, so if it comes to decision making through AI, the previous pattern would, I am again not making a judgment here, but would kind of give more weightage to particular community when it comes to decision making and not to the other. So how do you perceive that? Like since it completely based on how the past patterns have been, do you see AI and the decision making role when it comes to legal structure.
No, you
But
answered the question yourself. If somebody is discriminating against people of color or any caste or identity, it's just
yeah,
wrong.
but
Now,
those
I'll tell you a funny case.
yeah.
So in the Chinese Supreme Court, it came to know that for 30 years they have been documenting their case laws and digitizing them pretty well.
Okay.
But 30 years is a huge deal. Now,
Yeah.
because of that, even in criminal law matters, which are very sensitive and require human intervention, you can't just
Mhm.
damn automate it.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court of the of whatever their name is, the Supreme Court of China,
Mhm.
with due respect, they have a case management inspired AI system which actually tells the judges
Okay.
what is the appropriate judgment,
Mhm.
and the bench of the court has to agree with it, and if they don't agree they have to say in writing why.
Okay.
Now that is even egregious.
So they mostly agree with it, or they?
That depends. That I'm not well aware of. But
Mhm.
my point is, from a point of applicability, they might have some accuracy. Okay, they might want to dispose of cases very soon, maybe population reasons, whatever.
Yeah.
But then again, it can't be implemented even in India.
Right.
If you do it, it will cause so much travesty to justice.
Right.
Right?
Right.
People have issues in trusting courts.
Mhm.
They genuinely do. It's not that our judges are not working hard. Some judges in certain high courts are, and even the Supreme Court judges, they're working very hard. But the issue is the Indian system is not perfect. It takes time. What can we do? Therefore, of course,
Right.
using automation or augmentation to do that is just unnecessary. The reason it happened in the US is because somebody just wanted to try it. They're a federal country. They are a very pro-capitalistic country. So what happens is that they think just try whatever. In India, we also do that sometimes. In the fintech side, affiliate
Yeah.
marketing,
Yeah.
e-commerce,
Yeah.
concert, economics, blah blah blah. But it's not that much like it happens in the US in its own way. So in that regard, it's a funny dilemma, and
Yeah.
I think more. Again, there's no transparency about it. So of course, you know,
So,
discrimination against people of color is a problem. So yeah, no disagreement with you.
but one point that so this is something that also makes me think is it could be possible because AI has the potential to learn of its own and improve when it comes to making better decisions and coming with better outcomes. So I was just going through this one AI tool, I forgetting the name, but it was supposed to play a game, right? And get better at it. So firstly, it took all the data from previous games, but it itself played games against him his own self, got better at it, and then he also defeated the world champion in that game. So it has the potential to learn on its own, right? So doesn't that help when it comes to getting away with the biasness and everything?
Great question. Now I'll add something to this.
Sure.
Any AI system can learn, of course. That's why
Mhm.
reinforcement learning using human feedback is necessary.
Yeah.
But the problem is, can it explain? It
Mm,
can't.
makes
It
sense.
can't explain its actions. There's an interesting paper I would recommend our viewers. We have actually developed a report on this,
Okay.
which is available on the Indo-Pacific app. So we call it, that paper is about, not, we have not written it, but the report is about a paper. That paper was
Mhm.
published by a very renowned Gen AI company, Anthropic. They're also building
Okay.
models like ChatGPT. So they have
Mhm.
Claude. They have Claude 3 Opus, fantastic model with
Okay.
mistakes, but fantastic model. I would say arguably even better than Claude 3.5 Sonnet, because 3.5 Sonnet, in my view, experience is not that good. But
Okay.
Claude 3 Opus is good.
Mhm.
So they came up with a paper on monosemanticity. And in monosemanticity, they showed how keywords and terms have a very interesting role to play when it comes to drafting certain things and link it to something else. And
Okay.
again, I can't give you specific examples because it is just too specific and not necessary to discuss.
Mhm.
But the paper is very good from an observational point of view.
Okay.
I think that also shows that generative AI is already reaching its peak.
Right.
Because if AI can't explain, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It can learn, of course, no doubt. That's why machine
Right.
learning. That's why
Mhm.
supervised learning. That's why reinforcement learning. That's why deep learning. But can it explain? No. You need certain efforts to do so. And how can you explain? Well, there could be certain technical efforts like
Mhm.
data inferencing, uh, how much is clearly understandable after technical diagnosis. In your final outputs, are you putting anything explanatory in a textual or other ways which are indicative enough? Can the
Right.
AI system impart that kind of knowledgeable understanding? It's like in carpentry. You tell somebody that, what you have created is furniture, but there are certain things you need to know, that it's this kind of a wood, this kind of
Mhm.
carving has happened. So even explainable AI is like that. You need to
Yeah.
give those indicative aspects as to why am I explaining and whether I am explaining it. I think from
Mhm.
a data protection, not data point of view, from a technical practices point of view, it's not happening yet. But yes, I am pretty sure that companies across the world are trying on explainable AI very hard, beyond the hype of responsible AI. So yeah,
Yeah, and you mentioned how keywords and phrases can change the output that we get from a particular generative AI, right? So I could remember one experiment where now, since I think models are trained to not disclose security captchas and everything, but if you place that captcha in certain image, say I have image of a watch and I place the captcha on it, and I ask them what is written on the watch and not what is the captcha actually. It will tell me exactly what the captcha is, but if I directly ask what the captcha is, it won't say. But there are loopholes, like you can do that, right? So considering how it has progressed with from text to image and now to video, uh, how do you see the next 3 years when it comes to using that and not putting a limitation, and how it is going to impact everyone?
one, many Gen AI cases will fall down in 12 months.
Okay.
They
Why do
will.
you think so?
I think because they're not viable enough, and it depends on every sector. And I think a lot of them in the B2C side will fail. In the B2B narrow AI, they might not. But in the
Mm-hmm.
B2C side, it's going to be a vulnerable market. But that being said, number two, the costs of tokens involved in Gen AI will
Yeah.
go down. So that will help us in getting more research done, which is great. So that is the second output for you. That's happening because of the nature of the semiconductor space. Too much constricted market, the price goes down, basic market economics.
Mm-hmm.
Third, regulation is not coming soon. Therefore, I
Okay.
think these three are my major views. The first one, I think, simply because I told you that
Mm-hmm.
uh, B2C side, they're not viable. They're just like a
Right.
consumer toy. They're just fantastic. They're sassy. They're lovely. I told you, like, for example, even in the case of visual generation, I told you how they copy from existing content and they
Uh-huh.
regurgitate the same stuff.
Right.
So,
Right.
so they're not generating anything new. And yes, there are some examples. There are a few companies who are doing it, but again, can they scale it up to a larger audience? Can they scale it up to
Mhm.
bigger clients? Again, that remains to be seen. Is there any transparency in knowing that? No, there is no case study around it. All we see
Yeah.
is technology events. People go, talk.
Mhm.
We are doing this, over. Okay, discuss the science about it. Discuss the technological features.
Right.
Ironically, even AI papers are fake, a lot of them, because they're just coming up with random ideas, and then the credibility is losing for a lot of papers. Like ironically, some people are not even PhDs, and they
Mhm.
are just masters in something, and then
Okay.
they are faking every time they have participated in this conference and that conference, and they have this reputation and that reputation. And when I
Right.
say conference, I'm not talking about a media event or a government event. I mean a research conference by a
Mhm.
university or an association of technical professionals, which is again indexed and very, very standardized.
Okay.
It's like going to an IIT Kharagpur conference or an
Mhm.
IIT Delhi conference, not some
Mhm.
random conference by a startup or not some
Right.
innovation day or something like that, right? And I
Right.
think, or NVIDIA Summit. NVIDIA Summit is very credible, right? NVIDIA is doing his
Mhm.
AI Summit this next month only. So
Yeah.
I think from a serious point of view, people have no idea. And I think the B2C use cases are failing. The B2B use cases
Mhm.
will survive. The B2 government, B2G use cases, well, it depends on how the governments do it.
Okay.
Yeah. And you
But
can feel free to disagree. There's no problem with that. Yeah.
yeah, so do you think one major aspect is the infrastructure cost that they have to, incur, and then they have to, get that back from the service that they provide? I think they don't match, right? When it comes to it.
Infrastructure cost, I told you the NVIDIA situation.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Overvaluation, trickle down effect. But beyond
Hmm.
that, they're just not viable. They're not standardized enough. In
Right.
specific segments, I can tell you they're working well. If they're narrow AI and B2C, but a reasonable customer base they can handle, then of course they can succeed. Who's stopping them? I might be proven wrong on that part.
Okay.
But rest of the B2C, I am absolutely sure they're not working well.
Okay. Understood.
So and then there is server cost. There is
Hmm.
a cost of tokens. If it goes down, good. But then let us see. Then how much reliable are these AI models? Because large language models are not stochastic; they hallucinate, and they
Yeah.
hallucinate simply because they are based on pattern making. That is how an LLM works.
Yeah. Yeah.
All LLMs are not world models.
Hmm.
Even GPT Orion 1 is not perfect.
Right. Right. Makes
It's
sense.
a it's generating outputs. It's
Yeah.
just been like maybe a week now, and people have
Hmm.
started declaring it's AGI, AGI, AGI. And come on, I mean, even Sam Altman finally is not saying that it is AGI.
AGI.
He's
Yeah.
saying, you know what, wait. And that's good, right? So Sam
Yeah.
Altman can make mistakes. He's admitting that to a limited
Yeah.
extent, and that's fine,
Right.
right? I
Hmm.
think that should be the way. Like, for example, VFX, right?
Hmm.
So organizations like Marvel Studios are now realizing that practical effects matter so much,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
So,
The DC Studios is realizing that VFX should not be in a way like, there's a movie called The Flash 2023.
yeah.
They featured a lot of old Superman, The Flash, Batman characters, and
Right.
they did it without consent, especially Nicolas Cage's Superman. And they did
Hmm.
it without consent. All of them were AI generated.
Oh, okay.
The movie was a flop. That was a different issue, but the larger problem was people
Hmm.
did not like it because it was AI generated. It was very artificial.
Hmm.
Sometimes, as I told you, whether it is Hollywood, whether it is any sector,
Yeah.
it all boils down to how much viable it has been. The surveys which come up, they are so
Hmm.
fake in so many aspects. One of the surveys which was about generative AI in customer, and I know I might sound like a pessimist. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a very skeptical optimist. I'm a very healthy thinker. I'm not against AI companies. I'm very pro AI companies. I think that's
Yeah.
why I drafted the bill. I said that you can't regulate right now. It's just useless to do it. You do it right
Yeah.
now, you're gonna be killing all the innovation and the potential to innovate, because India may minimum you need to have 25 to 50 lakhs to invest in GPUs and
Right.
all the AI infrastructure.
Right.
You know the socioeconomics of the middle class or
Right.
anyone. If somebody is from Patna or
Hmm.
Chembur or the northeastern like Imphal, or let us say Guwahati, how will the
Hmm.
person invest? They might not have that much money.
Right. Yeah.
They need VCs, they need investors, US investors, Indian investors, whatsoever. So
Right.
I think that's why viability is a question. And
Mm.
uh, many will fail because of this reason. They are creating wrappers around anything.
Correct. Yeah.
Because I don't
Most
want
of the
to.
products, most of
What
the
are
AI powered products that I see are actually just wrappers, upon wrapper. Yeah.
wrapper upon wrappers, creating WhatsApp chat using API, then linking it with. Well, you know what? Meta just defeated you. They came up with Meta AI chat,
Meta AI. Yeah.
and they are sourcing data from anywhere they want, Twitter, Google, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Smart. That was there. Though I was just since you mentioned how creativity is, how the AI generated scenes or the scripts are kind of repeating whatever has already happened, and it lose the uniqueness. I remember a conversation between, I think it was Kunal Shah and CTO of Zerodha, where they were debating how it would be so easy to create those epic Christopher Nolan moments with the AI. But the Zerodha CTO said that if it keeps happening again and again, it won't have be feel that special, right? So yeah, I just bring back to that conversation. So just last part that I wanted to touch before we close this conversation was, you have based your whole law aspect on I think 4 pillars that are reasonability, foreseeability, then accountability, actionability, and then ethical subjectivity, right? Can you just give us an idea how this could overall help us creating a better infrastructure when it comes to law for technology before we close this conversation? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much for asking that. I loved it when I looked it in the notes as well.
Yeah.
Um Reasonability means, for example, that you have a sense of reasoning. You
Hmm.
can understand as a human being or an institution run by human beings, whosoever it is, whatever legal status you have. Obviously, not
Yeah.
illegal. Who cares about illegals and terrorists? But if you're legal and you are sane, you
Hmm.
have a sense of thinking. And
Right.
therefore, you reason with yourself what is the intended purpose of any technology.
Hmm.
And therefore, a legal understanding comes around that, which is why the definition of intended purpose
Yeah.
or technical purpose of an AI matters. It is proposed across many AI legislations.
Hmm.
Then we have foreseeability. Okay, there's a sense of rationale, but can you foresee what is the problem later? Can you
Okay.
foresee what's happening later? Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
And and that is something which is interesting, right? It's important. And if we know that in any sector, I think we'll be pretty much successful in that regard. And I think it would help us in many ways.
Okay.
Actionability, kind of like liability and accountability itself,
Hmm.
where accountability is more like attribution that, hey, you did this.
Okay.
Liability means, hey, you did this, therefore, go to jail or pay this much money, or you are restricted from doing this, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
etc., etc. Okay, in simple language, because I don't want to talk in lawyerly terms, boss. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think your audience
Sure.
is not a legal audience. I just want to keep it
Right. Yeah.
because I'm very cool with this. I always try to keep it simple for people who are not into law.
Yeah, when I read your book, I think that was clear that you are writing it for the general audience, not for the people who are just uh, legally savvy, right? So I got that
Thank
from your
you.
book.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think this feedback should go everywhere because some of my lawyer friends were thinking that it's too lawyerly. I said you should read it now. People are who are not
Uh,
from the law who like it.
yeah, yeah. So I'll say every technical subject was followed up with an example which would make it very clear for a person who doesn't talk in from legal terminology exactly. Yeah. So
That I'm happy to know, boss. Thank you so much. Then if I come up with a third edition or a new book, I think that's a great feedback. So thank you so much, boss. I think
yeah,
this should be spread everywhere. But the last one
definitely,
is, yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And the last one is ethical subjectivity. So ethical subjectivity is that, okay, what is the ethical context within which you are thinking and making a decision? And I think these small things around AI matter that matter in a corporate decision within a startup, MSME, or research lab, or social enterprise, or open source community. And I think that's why they were referred, and that was the larger aspect. I think that's what you're trying to refer. Yeah.
I think that was if people do I'll attach a link of the book in the description, but I think the way that it has been explained, it just makes the entire thing meaningful, how it could be a framework that you could follow when it comes to drafting it. So yeah, that was great. I had a great read this week, so I'm just happy about that. Cool.
That's great.
So we'll wrap this up. Thanks a lot for your time. I think this was one of the most insightful conversation, and this is one of the conversation where I would draft pointers which we want to discuss, but this was very roughly drafted. I wanted to come with a very blank mind and see where the conversation goes. So thanks a lot for coming here today.
Certainly, my pleasure. I love rough conversations because I talk a lot with technology people. Because
Right.
my job is to also sympathize with their concerns. Like legal people, तो एक ही चीज कहते हैं. I'm not interested in that. So I'm
Yeah.
interested in how technology people are understanding. But at the end of the day, augmentation, automation, these things affect them, right? And
Hmm.
ironically, any government official needs to understand. So assuaging concerns helps. So glad
Right.
that my interventions helped. So nice time talking.